Have you ever wondered if what you're going through is a breakthrough or a breakdown? One day you feel like your mind is expanding, as if you're touching something beyond ordinary reality. The next, you're terrified, asking yourself, am I losing control? Am I going insane? If that question has ever whispered through your heart, you're not alone. Thousands of people every year experience powerful spiritual shifts, moments Carl Jung once described as the confrontation with the shadow and the beginning of individuation. But here's the problem. Modern psychiatry, including the American Psychiatric Association's DSM-5, often describes symptoms that sound almost identical: hallucinations, mood swings, intrusive thoughts. So which is it? A spiritual awakening or a mental illness? That confusion can feel like a prison, and it can either empower you or destroy you, depending on how you understand it. This is why we're here today, because mislabeling a spiritual awakening as mental illness can crush your growth, while dismissing genuine illness as just awakening can put your health at serious risk. And yet, almost nobody talks about the razor-thin line between the two. The World Health Organization estimates that 1 in 8 people worldwide will struggle with some form of mental disorder. At the same time, surveys show that millions are reporting profound mystical experiences, visions, or sudden inner transformations, what some psychologists now call spiritual emergencies. When those two realities collide, confusion is inevitable, but clarity is possible. And clarity begins with learning the 5 key signs that distinguish awakening from illness. Before we get into them, let me set the stage with a story. Imagine a woman named Sarah. She's in her late 40s, a devoted mother, someone who has never thought of herself as spiritual. Then, after a period of stress, she begins having vivid dreams filled with symbols, serpents, collapsing houses, luminous figures. By day, she feels her emotions swing wildly. She can't sleep. She cries for no reason. Her family thinks she's falling apart. Her doctor wonders if it's bipolar disorder. But when she finally talks to a Jungian therapist, they see something else. Sarah is entering the landscape of her shadow. Her psyche is calling her toward healing, toward wholeness. Without guidance, she could easily be medicated into numbness. With support, she can emerge more alive, more grounded, more herself than ever before. This story isn't rare. Maybe you've lived your own version of Sarah's journey. Maybe that's why you clicked on this video, because deep down, you're asking, what's really happening to me? Here's the good news. You don't need to face this mystery blind. Today, we're going to uncover 5 powerful signs that will help you tell the difference between mental illness and spiritual awakening, with insights drawn from Carl Jung, modern psychology, and global spiritual traditions. By the end, you'll not only understand the difference, you'll know the first steps to take to protect your mental health while honoring your spiritual growth. So stay with me, because the last sign is the one almost nobody talks about, and it could change everything about how you see yourself. And if you find value here, I invite you to subscribe to Awakened Wisdom, because this channel is where we explore the hidden truths that most people never hear, the wisdom that helps you walk the thin line between breakdown and breakthrough. Drop a comment as well. Type 1 if you've ever felt awakening blur into chaos, or 0 if you're just beginning to explore this path. This is more than a video. This is a conversation about your soul, your mind, and your truth. And it begins now. Carl Jung once wrote, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." Those words are more than just theory. They are a mirror, showing us the parts of ourselves we spend a lifetime trying to deny, bury, or run away from. But what exactly did Jung mean by the shadow? And why has this concept become so central to modern psychology, spirituality, and even our daily struggles with identity, anxiety, and healing? Imagine you are a child, standing in the sunlight. Behind you, a dark shape stretches across the ground. That shadow is not separate from you. It exists because of you. The same is true for the psyche. Our shadow is made up of the qualities we reject, repress, or find unacceptable. Maybe you were told as a child not to cry, so you buried your sadness. Maybe you were shamed for showing anger, so you learned to smile while rage seethed beneath the surface. Over time, those disowned parts of us don't disappear. They go underground. They live in the unconscious, shaping our thoughts, sabotaging our relationships, and erupting in moments we least expect. Jung believed the shadow wasn't bad, it wasn't evil, it was simply what had been pushed out of sight. And this is where it gets interesting, because modern psychology, from cognitive behavioral therapy to trauma research, confirms what Jung intuited. When we suppress emotions, they often come back with greater force. The American Psychological Association has published multiple findings showing that repressed anger and sadness are strongly linked to anxiety disorders, depression, and even physical illness. In other words, ignoring the shadow makes it grow louder. Let's ground this in a real example. Take Mark, a 35-year-old professional. Outwardly, he's successful, friendly, the kind of guy who never raises his voice. But privately, Mark has frequent headaches, chronic fatigue, and bursts of irritability he can't explain. His doctors tell him his body is fine. His coworkers admire him. Yet at night, he feels hollow. What's really happening? Mark has spent decades denying his anger. Anger at his father, anger at being overlooked. Instead of facing it, he swallowed it whole. Now it leaks out through his body, through his exhaustion, through unexplained pain. This is the shadow in action. And here's where the confusion with mental illness arises. When the shadow emerges, it doesn't come politely. It can look like intrusive thoughts, mood swings, even hallucinations in dreams or waking life. From a psychiatric perspective, these can resemble symptoms of disorders. In fact, research published in the Journal of Transpersonal Psychology describes the spiritual emergency phenomenon, intense spiritual experiences that are often misdiagnosed as psychosis. The World Health Organization itself acknowledges that mental health exists on a spectrum, influenced by cultural and spiritual context. So when the shadow bursts into awareness, one therapist might call it repressed trauma, while a shaman might call it initiation. Both, in their own way, are pointing to the same thing, the unconscious demanding recognition. But here's the hook. If the shadow is ignored, it rules us. If it's faced, it transforms us. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming whole. And it begins not by rejecting the shadow, but by meeting it with honesty. That is why shadow work has become such a powerful healing practice today. Through journaling, therapy, mindfulness, or guided spiritual practice, people are learning to dialogue with the parts of themselves they once feared. Neuroscience now supports this approach. Studies using fMRI scans have shown that when individuals bring unconscious emotions into conscious awareness, activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, decreases. Simply put, naming the shadow calms the storm. Now pause for a moment and ask yourself, what parts of you have you hidden from the world? The anger, the jealousy, the shame, maybe even your brilliance? Because here's the paradox. The shadow doesn't only hold what is negative, it also hides our golden qualities, talents, passions, and dreams we abandoned because they felt too risky, too bold. Many people discover that confronting their shadow is not just about facing darkness, it's about reclaiming their light. This is why shadow work is deeply connected to the question we raised in the introduction. Is this awakening or is this illness? Without context, the emergence of the shadow can feel terrifying, like you're breaking apart. But with understanding, you begin to see it as a signal, an invitation into deeper awareness. And this is the bridge into our next chapter, where we'll explore how these signals often appear as triggers, moments that reveal your shadow with startling clarity. Because the truth is, your shadow doesn't hide forever. It shows up in your reactions, your projections, your pain, and once you see it, you can never unsee it. The question is, will you run or will you face it? Have you ever noticed how certain people can ignite an emotional firestorm inside you within seconds? It could be the coworker who takes credit for your idea, the driver who cuts you off in traffic, or even the friend who seems to push your buttons in ways you can't logically explain. These moments, while uncomfortable, are not random. They are triggers, windows into the shadow. Jung called them projections of the unconscious. Modern psychology calls them emotional activation. But no matter what language you use, the reality is the same. When your reaction is bigger than the situation, you are face to face with your shadow. To understand this, let's break down the 3 most common triggers that reveal the hidden parts of ourselves. These aren't just minor irritations, they are doorways into the parts of our psyche we've worked hardest to deny. And if you learn to recognize them, they can become some of the most powerful tools for healing and growth. the people who irritate you the most. Carl Jung observed that what we hate in others often says more about us than about them. This is projection in action. When someone's behavior provokes an outsized reaction, when their arrogance, laziness, or dishonesty makes your blood boil, it's often because that trait exists, unacknowledged, within you. You may not express it openly, but it lives in your shadow. Let's illustrate this with a story. Sarah, a kind and responsible teacher, can't stand one of her colleagues who frequently arrives late. She finds herself obsessing over his tardiness, ranting to friends, and even lying awake at night replaying her frustration. But why such a strong reaction? When Sarah works with a therapist, she realizes her rage is not about him at all. Deep down, she envies his freedom. As a child, Sarah was punished harshly for even minor mistakes. She built her identity on being punctual, disciplined, the good girl. Her shadow contains the part of her that longs to break the rules, to rebel, to rest without guilt. Her colleague simply mirrored it back to her. Research supports this. Studies in social psychology, including those published by the American Psychological Association, confirm that projection is a defense mechanism. We attribute our own unwanted traits to others. It feels safer to judge them out there than to admit they exist in here. But here's the paradox. Every time someone irritates you, they're offering you a gift. They're showing you a piece of yourself that's waiting to be reclaimed. The situations that make you overreact. We've all had moments where our emotional reaction feels disproportionate. A small criticism feels like a personal attack. A friend's late text reply feels like abandonment. These are not just mood swings, they are shadows rising. Psychologists call this emotional flooding. Trauma research, especially from the work of Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score, shows that unresolved emotional wounds are stored in the nervous system. When a present moment resembles a past wound, our body reacts as if the old pain is happening again. For example, a child who felt ignored by their parents may grow into an adult who panics when a partner seems distant. The trigger is not about the partner, it's about the shadow of childhood loneliness. The World Health Organization emphasizes that mental health symptoms, like panic attacks or depressive episodes, often emerge in response to stress triggers rather than out of nowhere. Shadow work reframes these experiences. Instead of seeing them only as pathology, we view them as signals, the unconscious demanding to be acknowledged. Consider David, who explodes in anger when his boss offers constructive criticism. Objectively, the feedback is minor, but for David it feels unbearable. Why? Because hidden in his shadow is the wounded child who was constantly belittled by his father. The boss's words rip open that unhealed wound. Until David faces it, every critique will feel like an existential threat. The qualities you secretly admire, not all triggers come in the form of pain. Sometimes, what we admire most in others is also part of our shadow. Jung called this the golden shadow. These are the talents, passions, or qualities we suppressed because they felt dangerous, arrogant, or too much for our family or culture. Think of Maria, who feels captivated by artists, musicians, and free spirits. She insists she could never live that way. She's too practical, too grounded. But why does she feel so drawn to them? Because deep inside her shadow is her own creative fire, the artist she buried to fit into her family's expectations. Every time she meets someone who lives boldly, her golden shadow whispers, "This is you too." Modern positive psychology confirms this dynamic. Research in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology shows that admiration and envy are two sides of the same coin. Both reflect traits we recognize but feel we cannot claim for ourselves. Shadow work invites us to reclaim these hidden gifts, not by copying others, but by integrating the parts of us that have been waiting to shine. So, why do these three triggers matter? Irritations, overreactions, and secret admirations. Because they are the language of the shadow. They are the psyche's way of knocking on the door, saying, "Look here, pay attention. Here's the key. Instead of running from these moments, lean into them. Ask yourself, what part of me is being mirrored here? What old wound is this reopening? What dream of mine is this person living out loud?" When you do this, triggers stop being landmines and start becoming compasses. And this is where the connection to mental illness versus spiritual awakening becomes crucial. Many people experiencing triggers think something is wrong with them. They fear they're too sensitive, too broken. But in the context of shadow work, those very symptoms are signs of awakening. They mean your unconscious is rising to the surface, asking to be healed. The difference lies in whether you interpret these moments as pathology to suppress or as invitations to grow. As we move forward, we'll explore why avoiding these painful revelations can keep us stuck in cycles of fear, numbness, and confusion. Because the truth is, what we resist doesn't disappear, it festers. And the more we run from the shadow, the more it rules us. In the next chapter, we'll look at why avoiding pain is the very thing that chains us to it, and how embracing discomfort can actually set us free. If there's one instinct nearly all of us share, it's the desire to avoid pain. From the time we're children, we're taught to seek comfort and escape discomfort. When you scraped your knee as a child, you were told not to cry. When you felt angry, you were told to calm down. When you felt grief, you were told to be strong. The message was clear. Difficult emotions are dangerous, something to be managed, hidden, or pushed away. But here's the paradox. Every time we avoid pain, we actually strengthen the shadow's hold over us. Carl Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." In other words, true growth does not come from bypassing discomfort with positive affirmations or pretending everything is fine. It comes from facing the very things we'd rather run from. The problem is, modern culture often teaches the opposite. We're told to think positive, to move on quickly, to medicate away anxiety or numb ourselves with distractions. While these strategies can offer temporary relief, they often deepen the root problem. The American Psychiatric Association, APA, defines suppression as the conscious attempt to avoid confronting distressing thoughts or feelings. At first glance, it seems practical. Why dwell on sadness when you can stay busy? But research shows suppression doesn't eliminate emotions, it buries them alive. And what we bury doesn't vanish. It leaks out through the body, through relationships, through symptoms that look a lot like mental illness. For example, a study published in the Journal of Abnormal Psychology found that individuals who habitually suppressed emotions were significantly more likely to suffer from depression and anxiety. Their efforts to avoid pain only amplified it. Neuroscience backs this up. Brain imaging studies reveal that when the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, is activated but not processed, stress hormones linger longer, keeping the nervous system on high alert. And as we reflect deeper, we come to realize that the body itself remembers, holding imprints of what the mind has tried to bury. This is where the work of trauma experts like Bessel van der Kolk becomes essential. In The Body Keeps the Score, he explains how unprocessed pain doesn't simply disappear. Instead, it gets stored in the body: tight shoulders, shallow breath, digestive issues, chronic fatigue. These are the physical echoes of the shadow. Avoidance, then, is not neutral. It's corrosive. Each time we run from emotional pain, we reinforce the neural pathways that tell our brain, this is unsafe, hide, freeze. And so the shadow grows thicker, more elusive, more powerful. Think of Anna, a woman who lost her mother at a young age. Her family told her to stay strong and not cry too much. She did exactly that. For years, she appeared functional, even successful. But inside, her unprocessed grief manifested as recurring panic attacks. Every time she started to feel sadness, her body went into alarm mode. Only when she began shadow work, sitting with her grief, allowing herself to cry, journal, and even rage, did the panic loosen its grip. Avoiding the pain had kept her stuck. Facing it set her free. The cost of emotional numbing. Another way avoidance shows up is through numbing. Many people don't even realize they're avoiding pain because they're so busy overworking, scrolling endlessly, or self-medicating with alcohol or food. Psychologists call this experiential avoidance, the tendency to disconnect from reality in order to dodge discomfort. The World Health Organization, WHO, warns that this kind of avoidance is a major factor in the rising global rates of anxiety and depression. When people numb out, they disconnect not only from pain, but also from joy, love, and vitality. As Jung might say, the shadow doesn't just hold the darkness, it also holds the light we've abandoned. By avoiding pain, we avoid our own wholeness. This is where pain transforms, not as a punishment, but as a portal, an entryway into deeper understanding. Here's where the reframe comes in. Pain is not the enemy, it's the messenger. It points to what needs healing, what part of the shadow is calling for integration. Just as physical pain alerts you to an injury that needs attention, emotional pain signals a psychic wound that longs for repair. This is why so many spiritual traditions, Buddhism, Christianity, indigenous healing practices, speak of suffering as a teacher. Neuroscience echoes this wisdom. Studies on post traumatic growth show that people who learn to face and process painful events often develop greater resilience, empathy, and even creativity. Consider how this ties to the confusion between spiritual awakening and mental illness. When someone begins to awaken spiritually, old wounds and shadows surface with intensity. To the untrained eye, these symptoms can look like breakdowns, panic, despair, mood swings. But what if they're actually breakthroughs? What if the pain is not proof of pathology, but a portal into deeper wholeness? The difference lies in how we respond. Do we avoid it, suppress it, medicate it away, or do we meet it with courage, compassion, and curiosity? What once was avoidance now becomes acceptance, the courage to turn toward what we used to run from. So, how do we break free from the trap of avoidance? Jungian analysts often encourage active imagination, dialoguing with painful images or feelings instead of repressing them. Therapists recommend mindfulness, journaling, or somatic practices that allow the body to release what it has been holding. In practical terms, it might look like this. Instead of running from loneliness, you sit with it, noticing the sensations in your chest. Instead of numbing anger with alcohol, you write it out in a journal or take a long walk. Instead of dismissing jealousy, you ask, what part of myself longs to be expressed here? Each act of presence weakens the shadow's grip. Avoidance keeps us stuck because it feeds the illusion that pain is unendurable. Facing pain dissolves that illusion. And the more we practice, the more we discover that within pain lies power. In the next chapter, we'll explore one of the shadow's most cunning disguises, projection. If avoidance keeps us stuck in pain, projection keeps us blind to it altogether. It's the mirror that reflects what we refuse to see. And by learning to recognize projection, we take another step toward reclaiming the wholeness that has always been ours. Think for a moment about the last time someone truly irritated you. Maybe it was the coworker who always talks over others, the neighbor who seems arrogant, or even the stranger online whose words sent you spiraling into anger. Why did their behavior strike such a raw nerve? Were they really that powerful, or did they awaken something already living inside you? This is where Carl Jung's idea of projection becomes not only fascinating, but essential to shadow work. Jung described projection as the unconscious act of attributing to others what we cannot or will not see in ourselves. Everything that irritates us about others, he wrote, can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. When we deny or repress aspects of our psyche, those qualities don't disappear. Instead, they get cast outward, like a film projected onto the screen of other people's lives. The things we find most intolerable, infuriating, or magnetic in others are often reflections of the hidden parts of ourselves. Projection then becomes a mirror of the shadow, reflecting back to us what we refuse to see within. Imagine the shadow as a locked room in your psyche, filled with traits, desires, and emotions you've banished: anger, envy, selfishness, vulnerability. Because you can't bear to admit them, you unconsciously assign them to others. Suddenly, your friend seems so selfish, your colleague too aggressive, your partner too needy. In reality, these qualities may not belong to them at all, or at least not to the degree you perceive. They belong to you. Modern psychology confirms the universality of projection. Studies published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology show that individuals often overestimate in others the very traits they deny in themselves. A classic experiment demonstrated that people who suppressed aggressive impulses were more likely to perceive hostility in strangers. The shadow, it seems, doesn't stay hidden. It insists on being seen, even if that means distorting our perception of reality. Take Daniel, for example, a man who prided himself on being calm and easygoing. He hated conflict so much that he never expressed anger, convincing himself he was simply above it. But over time, Daniel grew increasingly irritated with his teenage son, who was outspoken and often argumentative. He called his son disrespectful, rebellious, and immature. But when Daniel entered therapy, he realized that what truly enraged him was not his son's behavior, but the buried anger within himself. By refusing to acknowledge his own rage, he projected it onto his child. The shadow had spoken, not through his own voice, but through the exaggerated lens of judgment. This is how projection exposes the shadow, by confronting us with versions of ourselves we'd rather deny. It is both uncomfortable and liberating because once we see it, we can no longer pretend the shadow doesn't exist. This reflection plays out most vividly in relationships, where our hidden wounds and desires come alive through others. Relationships are the richest soil for projection because intimacy acts like a mirror. Jung observed that what we fall in love with or despise in another person often reflects the unlived parts of our own soul. In fact, much of what couples fight about has less to do with objective reality and more to do with unconscious projections colliding. The American Psychological Association, APA, notes that unresolved projections can contribute to marital dissatisfaction, workplace conflict, and even prejudice. When we externalize our shadow, we fail to engage with it responsibly. Instead, we scapegoat others, reinforcing cycles of misunderstanding and disconnection. Think of how often someone says, "She's so judgmental," without realizing that the very act of saying so is itself a judgment. Projection is slippery, recursive, and relentless until we bring it into consciousness, spiritual awakening, or mental illness. Here is where shadow work becomes critical in the conversation about awakening versus pathology. When people begin to spiritually awaken, they often report heightened sensitivity to others, feeling overwhelmed by the flaws, cruelty, or hypocrisy of the world. While some of this perception may reflect real injustice, part of it is also projection. The awakening process shakes loose old psychic material, and what arises can feel like paranoia, mood swings, or even delusions. Clinically, this can resemble symptoms of mental illness. The World Health Organization, WHO, reminds us that distorted perception is one criterion for psychiatric diagnoses, but the difference lies in how it is understood and worked with. If someone can learn to recognize projection as the shadow-seeking integration, they can transform the experience into growth rather than collapse. Yet within projection lies a hidden gift, if we dare to claim it. Though projection often feels like a curse, it is also a gift. It shows us precisely where the work lies. The qualities we exaggerate in others are clues pointing back to the neglected rooms in our own psyche. To notice your projections is to find the edges of your shadow. Psychologists recommend several practices for working with projection. Journaling. Write down strong emotional reactions to others and ask, what part of this lives in me? Active imagination. Engage in dialogue with the projected figure in your mind. What do they want to teach you? Mindfulness. Pause when triggered and observe. Is this truly about the other person, or is something in me being stirred? The goal is not to eliminate projection, but to integrate it. As Jung noted, the shadow cannot be destroyed, it must be embraced. Projection is the flashlight that reveals where to look. Seen in this way, we live in a world of shadows, each interaction offering us another chance to awaken. If you've ever wondered why social media feels so toxic, projection offers part of the answer. Online platforms amplify our tendency to cast shadows. We project envy onto influencers, anger onto politicians, perfection onto celebrities. This collective projection fuels polarization, scapegoating, and division. In a sense, we are living not only with individual shadows, but inside a cultural hall of mirrors. Healing at the personal level, then, becomes the first step toward healing collectively. Projection is one of the most powerful forces keeping us disconnected from our true selves. Yet, when we learn to see it for what it is, a reflection of our shadow, we begin to reclaim the parts of us we had abandoned. And with that, we arrive at the natural question: how do we begin to heal? How do we not only recognize the shadow, but also integrate it into our daily lives? That is where our journey turns next, in Chapter 5, the first step to healing your shadow. If you've followed this journey so far, you've learned that the shadow is not your enemy. It is the unacknowledged part of your psyche, revealed through triggers, kept alive by avoided pain, and exposed through projection. But knowledge alone is not enough. As Jung often reminded us, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Awareness is only the first step. The next, and perhaps the hardest, is practice. How do we turn insight into transformation? The truth is, you don't need mystical rituals or decades locked away in monasteries. Healing the shadow begins in ordinary human acts of honesty with yourself: a notebook, a conversation, a few quiet minutes of breath. These may sound small, even unimpressive, but they are the doorways through which lasting change enters. Let's walk through three tools: journaling, therapy, and meditation that, when practiced with intention, can help you begin integrating the shadow and distinguishing between a spiritual awakening and the symptoms of mental illness. One of the first practical tools is journaling, where writing becomes a mirror for the soul. Picture this: you're sitting with a journal, pen hovering above the page. You don't plan what to write. You just let the raw words spill out: your irritation at a friend, your envy of a colleague, your secret fear of failure. At first, it feels messy, or even embarrassing. But slowly, the truth begins to surface. What you see on the page are not just complaints. They are fragments of your shadow making themselves known. This practice, known as shadow journaling, has deep psychological roots. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Psychology found that expressive writing reduces stress, increases emotional clarity, and even strengthens immune function. James Pennebaker, one of the pioneers of expressive writing research, showed that people who wrote about their deepest emotions experienced better mental and physical health outcomes. For shadow work, journaling acts as a bridge between the unconscious and conscious. Write about your strongest triggers. Write about the people who annoy you the most. Then ask, what in me resonates with this? What part of me wants to be heard? Jung himself used a form of this process in his Red Book, where he dialogued with figures of his psyche through writing. He wasn't just venting, he was entering conversation with his shadow. Over time, journaling becomes less about purging and more about integration. You may begin to notice patterns: recurring fears, repeated projections, hidden desires. These patterns are maps, pointing you toward the parts of yourself that long to be reclaimed. Another powerful tool is therapy, offering a safe space for dialogue with the shadow. While journaling is powerful, sometimes the shadow is too slippery or too heavy to face alone. That's where therapy becomes invaluable. Jung himself created analytical psychology precisely to help people encounter their unconscious material safely. In modern times, approaches like psychodynamic therapy, internal family systems, IFS, and cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, each offer different but effective methods of engaging the shadow. For example, IFS, developed by Dr. Richard Schwartz, frames the psyche as made up of parts, including exiled or suppressed parts that resemble Jung's shadow. In therapy, individuals learn to meet these parts with compassion rather than fear, creating healing through dialogue instead of repression. The American Psychological Association, APA, highlights that therapeutic interventions significantly reduce distress for people experiencing intrusive thoughts, mood swings, or distorted self-image, all of which can appear during a spiritual awakening. Without support, these experiences may look and feel like mental illness. But in therapy, they are reframed as opportunities for integration. Think of it this way: therapy provides an external mirror when your internal one is fogged. A skilled therapist helps you separate projection from reality, trauma from awakening, illness from growth. They don't eliminate the shadow for you. They walk beside you as you enter the dark room with a light in hand. Alongside these is meditation, where we sit quietly with the shadow and learn to befriend it. The third practice, meditation, can sound deceptively simple: sit, breathe, watch. But what happens when the moment you close your eyes, the very emotions you've been avoiding come rushing in? Anger, shame, fear. They sit beside you like unwelcome guests. This is precisely why meditation is such a powerful shadow tool. It teaches you to stay present with what arises instead of running away. Neuroscience backs this up. Research published in Frontiers in Psychology shows that mindfulness meditation decreases reactivity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, and increases activity in the prefrontal cortex, which regulates awareness and decision-making. In simple terms, meditation helps you respond to the shadow rather than be consumed by it. Spiritual traditions echo this. In Buddhism, the practice of vipassana, insight meditation, involves watching thoughts and emotions without judgment. Tibetan monks describe it as befriending the demons. Jung himself compared meditation to active imagination, another way of dialoguing with the unconscious. The goal is not to silence the shadow, but to listen to it without losing yourself. One practical method is the RAIN practice, popularized by psychologist Tara Brach. Recognize what you're feeling. Allow it to be there without resistance. Investigate its deeper roots. Nurture yourself with compassion. Meditation done consistently rewires the nervous system. Over time, the emotions that once overwhelmed you become teachers rather than threats. When journaling, therapy, and meditation work together, they create integration, a trio weaving the shadow into the wholeness of our being. On their own, journaling, therapy, and meditation are powerful, but together, they form a holistic approach to shadow work. Journaling reveals the patterns, therapy provides guidance and context, and meditation cultivates the resilience to sit with what arises. Perhaps most importantly, these practices help you discern the difference between awakening and illness. When journaling uncovers raw fear, therapy helps you trace it to its roots. When meditation brings up visions or intrusive thoughts, professional support helps you decide whether it's a spiritual process or a clinical issue. Instead of falling into confusion or self-diagnosis, you cultivate clarity. At the heart of shadow work is not the elimination of darkness, but its integration. These tools are not glamorous, but they are real. They are ways of remembering that your shadow is not a monster to be slain, but a teacher waiting to be heard. And so we return to where we began, the fine line between spiritual awakening and mental illness. With these practices, you can walk that line with more confidence, more compassion, and more clarity. The shadow will still whisper, but now you'll have the tools to listen without fear. In our final conclusion, we will tie together the lessons from this entire journey, the signs of awakening, the risk of misdiagnosis, and the profound invitation the shadow extends to all of us to live more whole, authentic, and deeply human lives. As we arrive at the close of this journey, let's pause for a moment. Think back to where we began, at the question that quietly haunts so many. Am I experiencing a spiritual awakening, or am I falling into mental illness? It's a frightening question because the symptoms can look so similar: confusion, anxiety, even visions, or deep despair. But through the lens of shadow work, we've discovered that what often feels like madness may actually be the soul's way of breaking through the cracks of the false self. And in Chapter 5, we grounded all of this in practice: journaling to dialogue with our unconscious, therapy to find guidance and perspective, meditation to sit with what arises without fear. These are not lofty, impossible tasks. They are daily practices, accessible tools that slowly but steadily lead us toward integration. So what does this all mean? It means that when you begin to feel those symptoms, when anxiety spikes, when you feel alienated from your old self, when dreams shake you awake, it doesn't automatically mean you are broken or ill. Sometimes it means you are awakening. And yet, awakening doesn't exclude the need for professional support. True wisdom lies in holding both truths, seeking medical or psychological help when needed, while also recognizing the spiritual dimension of your journey. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Today, you have taken steps to make your unconscious more conscious. You've listened, reflected, and perhaps recognized parts of yourself you've been avoiding. That is courage. That is shadow work. But remember, transformation doesn't happen in a single video. It unfolds over time with consistent effort and support. And you don't have to do it alone. Here on this channel, Awaken Wisdom, we are building a community of seekers, empaths, and thinkers who are walking this same path. So here is my invitation to you. If this video resonated with you, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapter in our Shadow Work series. Leave a comment below. Have you ever wondered if your struggles were signs of awakening or symptoms of illness? Your story might be the very thing that helps someone else feel less alone. And if you found value here, please share this video with a friend or loved one who may be facing the same questions in silence. Most of all, take what you've learned today and begin. Write in your journal tonight. Sit for 5 quiet minutes tomorrow. Speak honestly with someone you trust. These are small acts, but they are revolutionary. You were never meant to live cut off from your own depths. You were meant to walk into the shadow, gather what you find there, and return to the light more whole, more alive, and more authentically yourself. That is the gift of shadow work. That is the heart of awakening. And so I leave you with this. Your shadow is not your enemy, it is your teacher. Listen to it, integrate it, and you will discover that what once felt like madness was always pointing you toward meaning. Thank you for walking this path with me. Until next time, stay awake, stay compassionate, and never forget the light you seek has been within you all along. Please leave a comment to share your experience, subscribe to the channel to explore deeper spirituality together.